Well, welcome to another episode of the Business's Mission Podcast. I'm Mike Baer, your host, and I have a new friend who I think is going to become a good friend, Justin Eklund, who is the founder of Grove 9, a marketing firm. He'll tell us about that. But he wrote a book, and that's kind of how we got connected. And so we're going to talk mainly about the book. We'll get his story as well. It's called Brand for Impact. And Justin, in a little bit, don't you have to do it right now, but we'll talk about where it's available. Surely it's available on Amazon. That's where I got it. But I think you probably already have a website as well. So first of all, a little bit of introduction. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
So when Justin first reached out to me, I have to admit, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. We was really kind of a lukewarm call. And he started talking, and I thought, oh, okay, this is getting warm real fast. He's got a heart much like mine, and he's just following the Lord in business. And he's got a particular gift in marketing and branding. And as we were talking about before the show, Justin, you have a message for and a plan, an actual process for entrepreneurs and business owners to bring their integrating of their faith into their marketing, into their brand itself in different ways. Don't think, guys, if you're listening, don't think, oh my gosh, I got to put a fish in my business card. He kind of goes out of his way to say, no, that's not what I'm talking about, but it's a much more important thing. So, Justin, first of all, just a few minutes on your background. Who are you? How did you get to where you are? And then ultimately, I want to find out what prompted you, what led you to write this book.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. That's a great intro. I feel like you've covered a lot of ground already. So thanks for doing that. In high school, I attended a youth camp and really felt God calling me into some kind of full-time vocational ministry. Didn't really know what that was going to look like when I was in high school, but I clearly felt God wanted me to be active in my faith as part of what I did every day for a living. So, I went to Bible college and quickly discovered that really wasn't my calling. I wasn't called to be a preacher or a pastor. And so, I felt a little disillusioned, like, okay, God, what are you doing? Where am I supposed to be? I knew I had a mind for business. I knew I had a lot of creativity inside of me. And so I went back to State University, Wichita State, and quickly discovered advertising and marketing was the thing that really resonated with me. It was a really cool blend of strategy and business and also creativity and words and images and persuasion. And so got my degree in advertising and marketing, and I was off and running, joined a large ad agency here in town and started working my way up the ladder. Well, as God often does, he intercepted my plans, and I had a conversation with a gentleman at an event, and he gave me an application for a missions organization. I'd never heard of this organization before. It was called YWAM. And I thought this guy was a little off, like, I'm not sure why you're giving this to me, but he said, the gentleman I was supposed to give this to didn't show up and God's telling me to give it to you. So he did mention that the training, the actual base was in Maui. So that tended to help me warm up to the idea a little bit more. So.
There's a confirmation for you, right?
And for a boy in the middle of the country, as far from the ocean as you could possibly be, Maui sounded pretty attractive. So ended up doing some missions work, did some marketing and communications for them after the missions work. Came back to Wichita, met my wife, Beth, and really had a friend right away ask me if I would do marketing and development for his brand new startup. He had a Christian mission startup, and Beth was working and I was able to do this for him as a volunteer, and just thought, this is pretty cool. I can use the skills and abilities that I've been developing, but help him get this thing off the ground and make a kingdom impact through the work that I'm doing. So did that for a while, ended up getting a phone call from a church. They said, would you come over and help us with our youth group? So I felt like that was something I was supposed to do. I did that. And very quickly, they hired a new youth pastor and they said, we'd like you to stay here and help us with marketing and communications. we don't have a job, there's no role, and it doesn't pay much, but we would really love for you to do it anyway. So, you know, as a
What
kind
an
of,
offer.
yeah, as a driven young man, I thought, man, God, is this a detour? Am I getting off the path? I want to be ambitious. I want to do all I can for God's kingdom, but we really felt like He wanted us to be there. So said yes to that opportunity. And again, as God does, I had the honor and privilege of a front row seat to watch God grow that church from 500 to 5,000 people. And it was just such an amazing opportunity to utilize all of the gifts and talents and experience and education that He'd given me uh, in that environment to really help reach people for Christ. So that was amazing. That was a 14-year run. And about that time, after 14 years, I felt God calling me back into the marketplace. Just that prompting that this is bigger than the church. You can make a greater impact in the world, helping faith-driven leaders do what you've been doing all along, helping them incorporate their faith and be a light in the world. To share their faith, to share their influence, to use whatever platform God's given them, to do what God's calling us to do, to incorporate their faith and evangelism into the workplace. And so we started Grove 9, our marketing agency, 10 years ago. We just celebrated our decade birthday last month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, from that time, we've just been helping Christian nonprofits and in faith-driven marketplace leaders really clarify their brand, grow their revenue, and make a greater impact. And that's really kind of the genesis of this book, trying to get all of that into a framework that can help even more people.
Fantastic. So I have to start with a really basic question. So I need you to give us a layman's answer,
Okay.
and that's the word branding. We all of us, whether we're in business as mission or just in business in general or wherever we are on the spectrum, we hear about branding all the time, and I know there are 10,000 different opinions and 10,000 different definitions. When you talk about brand in the context of branding for impact, what exactly are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. We answer this all the time. To us, a brand is the one idea that people think of when they think of you. Our brains are in survival mode. We receive, the research says, 10 to 20,000 advertising messages a day.
Ooh,
Our brains
no
are
wonder I'm tired.
exactly. We're just trying to survive. We're trying to make it to the next thing. And we're really bombarded by messages and persuasion. And just to survive, your brain is going to simplify, it's going to filter, and you're very quickly going to think of one idea for a company or for an organization or for a person, right? You're going to hang them on a hook, and a brand is that hook. A brand is the one idea that you want people to think of when they think of you. And you have to be very intentional about that, because if you're not, we're going to talk about this later, I would assume, they'll make up their own story. And you want to be intentional and proactive about the brand that you put out there for your organization. And even as a person, your personal brand, you want to be intentional about that as well. So a brand is an idea. It's an emotion. It's a feeling you have about a company or a person. And really, at Grove 9, we try to boil that down to one word. We call that your brand platform.
So probably one of the best known examples of that would be Volvo, right? When you think Volvo, you think safety.
Absolutely.
And their history, I guess, up until recently, maybe still is, supports that. Everything they do has been had at least have done. When they invented the seat belt and the seat harness, they gave it away to the whole automotive industry. And to me, it's a great example of the word that sticks in my mind and the actions, the story that say, yeah, this is the real deal. How does a Christian do that? And I want to jump very quickly into your points that you make in the book about overt, covert, how in your face, obviously you're a committed believer, you have a business, you want that business to glorify God, to impact the community, the world. And some people are subtle about it. I think obviously there's some that are fearful. I don't want to go there, but some people are very subtle about it, and some people are very, what's the right word? Very aggressive, if you will, very, very open. How do you think about that? Number one, and in terms of what you're talking about in the book, and then how do you advise your customers? You got a lot to say. So for the listeners, guys, I'm teeing up. Go read the book. It's worth it for this dialogue to learn more about how Justin has taught and thought about this open Christian branding and how do you do it without I always use the analogy of a guy with a 6-inch Bible on his desk. That's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
So
Yeah. Mike, I think it's a personal conviction. I'm not here to tell anyone how they should do it. But I hope the book gives people some inspiration. It gives them some ideas for here's how other successful faith-driven entrepreneurs and business leaders have done this in their organizations. And we've seen flourishing, we've seen thriving. And I think that's so cool to say, man, and again, it's not a name it and claim it kind of a thing, but the research shows that when we honor God and when we're unashamed and courageous to talk about our faith and use the platform that he's given us in whatever way that we personally want to express our faith, he honors that. And time again, we see these organizations flourish, and I think, again, it's personal, but I think most business leaders, most entrepreneurs, most faith-driven people err on the side of caution. And I think that's because the research showed they're either not equipped to do it well, or they haven't thought about it. Like this is just what it is. I have my personal life with my faith, and I have my professional life with my work, and those two worlds don't really come together. So I think they're oftentimes just not equipped, and they just haven't been challenged or really shown some examples of how this can be done well. And there are, we all think of the examples where it really hasn't been done well.
a lot of those,
Yeah.
and there are some where it's been done beautifully. But
Yeah.
so you make a comment in it, and you've also said this a minute ago when you talk about story. Obviously, what you have a word that you're trying to capture in the mind, and it's not necessarily Christian, is not necessarily the word, but something that connects. This is who they are. This is who he is. And then you talk about, and I'm trying to get this quote right. You talk about show and tell, saying and doing, and so, and I think that's what you just kind of bumped into is I can say it, but I must do it. If I say it, don't do it, I'm the worst sort of witness there is. If I do it and don't say it, I may be missing an opportunity. But tie those two together, and how do you advise small companies? And as you go through this, I'm leading up to a place where most of our listeners are involved in the global businesses mission movement. Some of them are in countries where it's totally okay to be overtly Christian. It's not a problem. You could put a fish on your business card if you wanted to. That may not be the way God leads you, but you could. But some of our listeners, an increasing number, are in places where that's just not possible. So start off with this show and tell. Let's start with that, and I'll bring you back to, okay, how does that work in some of the places where our listeners are living?
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, I think more often than not, business leaders do a better job of the showing than they do of the telling, which to me is kind of flipping it upside down. Oftentimes, you see hypocrisy where people talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Interestingly, I think many organizations we're going to talk about, in the book, we talk about the triple bottom line, which is a concept that my friend Pete Oakes talks about in his book. And really, it's this idea of creating economic, social, and spiritual capital through your business, through your organization. And many leaders are doing those things. They just are afraid to actually talk about it. And I think, we all know, and we've all heard that your life, your actions are your strongest witness. But in marketing and branding, it really helps to say it. It helps to actually come out and say, this is why we do what we do. These are our values. This is what drives our organization. And so many people are willing to show it, but they really don't want to step out there and actually put words to it. And, we can't assume, in marketing, people need to see and hear a message 7 times before they're actually going to get it, right? We don't want to assume that they're just going to, so one day, many people will come to you and say, why are you different? What's the reason for why your organization is different than the others? And that's awesome. And we want that. We want to live out our faith in a way that people want to ask us about the hope that we have, right? But in marketing, you can also be intentional about putting creative words and messaging around your faith and your values in a way that's winsome and attractive and strengthens and supports your brand. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, it will draw ideal customers to you who share your values, who share your why. And it also is wonderful for your team, for your employees, for recruitment, for retention, for satisfaction and culture. Like-hearted, like-minded, missional team members, they want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of an organization that believes in something and has a purpose greater than just profit. So,
you think about that. I mean, we've all seen the hypocrites, and we've seen the beautiful examples of what Christ in the marketplace looks like. I know, and one of the companies I founded over the years called the Joldos Group, one of our core values the company's still going on. One of the core values that we wanted to live lives that invite inquiry.
mm-hmm.
And we would share that with customers. That they would say, what does that mean? Well, it's what you just said, is that we want to live. We tell them point blank. We weren't shy about it. We are Christians. We actually prefer to use the term followers of Jesus because of the Muslim world where we work. And we want you to be able to look at us and ask us why and know where we're going with it. Over the years, I can remember I was in Kyrgyzstan, for example. We were setting up a university over there, and my Russian partner, not business partner, but collaborator, she asked me, she said, so you're a Christian, right? And this is a Muslim country. And you don't immediately go, well, yeah, I'm a Billy Graham Christian. I mean, you just typically don't do that because of the history of the Crusades mainly. So I said, I am. I said, I prefer to be called a follower of Jesus, but you're correct. Why? And she looked at me, big smile on her face. She says, I just thought so. Well, that to me was incredibly validating. And she and I, over the years, had many, many in-depth heart conversations because of that exchange. She could see it and I could say it at the same time. So let's go to the hard places for a moment. I'm thinking of a particular brother that we've worked with over the years in India. And it's, I can tell you that up in northern India, where it's much harder to be a Christian than in the southern part. And he was criticized one time because he didn't have any Christian insignia on his business, not on his sign or his card or logo, anything. Criticized quite severely by an American brother who obviously had never been there and didn't understand the setting. For this guy to do that would pretty much be to put a box of matches and a can of gasoline in front of his business and say, anybody who wants to come by and start the fire can go for it. I mean, it could be incredible. And I'm not suggesting he's a coward, quite the opposite. He's very brave where he lives. But he's in one of those places where to brand myself as a Christian, I am a Christian, could be incredibly threatening, not only to his business, but to his family, to his employees, and to himself physically. How would you advise somebody, and I'm going to the extreme because that's a way to make a point.
Yeah.
But Justin, how would you, with your background, and I know you got a heart for missions, and we both have YWAM in common. There's a lot of things we think alike about. How would you advise somebody like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are organizations. There's one we interviewed a dozen faith-driven business leaders, more than a dozen for the book, and did case studies. And one of the companies that I really love, in their founding statement, they explicitly said, we want to make a Christian statement in the marketplace. But not everyone that works here has to be a Christian. We want everyone to know what we stand for, and yet we are going to be a place where you can come and you can grow and you can be a part of what we're doing. And I think that's one way to do it. I think in situations like you're mentioning, man, there are so many creative, subtle ways to start to show your faith without actually explicitly coming out and saying it. Movement Mortgage talks about love and value. You're just going to hear them say love and value, love and value, love and value over and over again. And after a while, you're like, where does that come from? Right? They're taking us one step closer to their heart and to their purpose. We talk about the fruit of the Spirit here at Grove 9. There's 9 of those. And that's people resonate with love and joy and kindness and goodness and faithfulness. And, that's, I think there are some really interesting creative ways that you can start to pry open the conversation, give people a peek into your values and your motivation without really crossing that line in places where it's not okay to say the word Christian.
Yeah. And I think that I would, that's the answer. I hate to say I would have expected it because I read your book. You talk about some of that stuff in the book. And again, for some of you that are in the BAM community, I want to encourage you to get a copy because Justin has dealt very clearly and very faithfully with all of these questions. This is not some fly-by-night book. You just touched on something that prompts another question that is in the long list I sent you, which we'll never get through, but I wanted to give you at least some stuff to think about. But you just talked about what, your brand attracts, you said customers, and all of us either have been or will be in a world where we have customers that we really wish we didn't have. They're not the right kind. They're not honest. They're not ethical. They don't pay their bills. They talk bad about. I mean, we've all lived that dream or will. And so I get the idea that branding is what attracts customers. But you made a point in the book, Justin, which I thought was really powerful. And given my background in the employment industry, you said something to the effect that there's a clear relationship, a demonstrable relationship between a clear brand and attracting top shelf employees. So I get the idea that I'm attracting the customers I want. That's what marketing is supposed to do, or part of it. But I don't think people think about the branding. Again, name is not branding. It's that word, it's that story. Talk about how that enables us to attract and retain really top shelf employees, and not necessarily all Christian. Yeah. Depends on your company strategy, but
absolutely. In the book, we have what we've developed. We call it the high impact brand model. And traditionally in marketing, you have the problem the customer has and the solution that your company offers. When those two things come together, you have a fit, right? The high impact model brings in 2 additional elements, and that's your values, your why, your beliefs, and your customers and or your potential employees' beliefs, their values, their why. And when those 4 elements come together, you have a very powerful brand. And that works on the customer side, and that also works on the employee side. And I think that's really the power of being courageous about your brand and your faith. You are going to attract those like-minded, really those team members who have similar values, who want to make a greater impact. And when you're looking at it on the employee side, it's not the customer's problem and your solution. It's their passion and their skill set and your organization's purpose and the thing that you do for the marketplace. So yeah, I think when you can bring those elements together and really help potential team members understand who you are and why you do what you do, not only do you get better team members, but you get team members who are in it for the long haul, and they give you more than someone who's just punching a time clock or a time card.
So is this kind of another way of talking about culture? You're building an internal culture and frankly an external culture. And I remember years ago I was talking with employees at one of my companies, and I would tell them on every new employee orientation why we were so serious about our culture. And one of those reasons is because culture creates fit. We fit somewhere. We don't fit everywhere, and we've all worked for companies where you realize I don't fit here. And this is not about any of those, the bad words about racism or sexism or genderism. And this is not about discrimination of any kind. This is about personally. We all know, just like there are churches where we fit, and there are churches that could be great churches, but you just don't fit. Same thing's true with a company, so it shows you where you fit. But this, you didn't say this in the book, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I also would tell them it shows you where you don't fit. That people will come into a company, they don't fit, and they either leave or they go underground. Leaving is actually healthy when they don't fit. But how do you speak to that in terms of, all right, I'm attracting the people I want, but I'm also kind of either not attracting, repelling, or expelling just by the power of culture and values and brand those people who they should be somewhere else. Not a shot at them. They should just be somewhere else. How do you speak to that?
You know, I love kind of the Chick-fil-A hiring model. They take a really long time to evaluate people at the higher levels of their company. And, I think that's part of the key is being really intentional and purposeful and patient in the hiring process. And again, putting your values forward so that those people can really understand, hey, this is what it looks like to work in this organization. These are the things they value. This is how they create economic, social, and spiritual capital in the world. And I can see myself doing that. I can see myself being a part of that every day.
I love it. All right, so we're going to move to the real practical before we close up. For those of you who haven't read the book yet, please get it. It's called Branding for Impact. It is on Amazon. I read it in Kindle, which is kind of how I read everything. Are there other places? I mean, I know it's wherever books are sold, but do you have a book website yourself that they can go to?
We're doing it all through Amazon. They
Okay.
can go to justineklund.com and get kind of an overview, but that'll also take them to Amazon to purchase the book. And
okay, so very simple to get the book. Go to Amazon. I'm selling for you, brother. I'm selling for you. It's a good book. I enjoyed it. I'm pretty critical when it comes to books like this, particularly new business books. But this one really covers some, to me, really important ground because it's building a bit of a bridge between the falsely called secular view of business and the sacred view of business. It's like, no, it's one and the same. You're walking on 2 feet. You're walking on, faith and trust, and it's a well-written book. You then, after giving us great stuff to think about, move to a very practical level with this thing that you call the lean marketing plan. I think you've just rebranded that. So give me the correct name. You sent me a note about it saying we've rebranded it, but it is a kind of step by step. I enjoyed going through it. You got me thinking, and I've been in business for 50 years. I'm like, I got some work to do here. But so tell us the correct name of it, and then walk us through the big pieces and why you think it's valuable. I certainly think it is.
That's awesome. We call it the impact journey now. And really, we're trying to practice what we preach. The whole thing is about impact. Mm-hmm. And we really believe that that's why we're here. That's why we're created. How do we make the greatest impact in other people's lives? How do we love God and love others through our organizations, through our families, through everything that we do? The impact journey is a 9-step process that we lead clients through. And it really it's 3 phases. It's discover, define, and develop. And in the discovery phase, we listen to the voice of the customer. I can't stress how important that is. You've got to be in touch with your target audience. You've got to be in touch with your stakeholders. You need to know perceptions around your brand and around your organization. You need to know awareness. You need to understand what they need, what they want, what their problem is, and really how you can help them solve their problem. So it starts with a tool we've developed called a 360 brand survey. And that's really where we listen to the customer. We also go a little deeper and do one-on-one interviews with some of your ideal advocates. And that's an opportunity, again, to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly about your organization. And some of it's hard to hear, and some of it's really encouraging. You can get some wonderful testimonials from this stage of the process as well. Also in Discover, we're going to look at your competition. And many people in the nonprofit world don't like that word, because we are all on the same side in essence. We're all working oftentimes toward a common goal, but the truth is we're all competing for dollars. We're competing for share of mind. And when someone chooses where they're going to give, or where they're going to volunteer, or where they're going to spend their resources, there is an element of competition there. So we want to help you develop a brand. We want to help our clients develop a brand that's unique, that stands out. It's less expensive and more effective for an organization to have a unique brand than it is to compete with 6 other organizations in their vertical for that same idea, for that same brand. So that's the discover phase. Then we get into the define phase. We want to have clear, measurable objectives for the marketing efforts. And then the heart of the impact journey is the brand platform. That's step number 5. And we've talked a lot about that today already, but really helping them dial in on that one idea that will become their brand platform. And then lastly, building messaging around that. So if our brand platform is love, how do we talk about that in our company? What's the personality of our brand? What's the tone of our language? What are the words that we use? What's our elevator pitch? And even, mission and values. How do we incorporate this into our company in a way that's creative and that's also showing and telling? I love Chick-fil-A's purpose statement and many others that we interviewed in the course of writing this book. And it starts out with to glorify God. And I think that's a very simple way for an organization to take a first step in incorporating their faith into their brand. The last phase is develop. So we talk about audience journeys and audience personas. We really help you understand these are your core target audiences, and this is where they spend their time, and this is what they value. And then the marketing strategies come along with that. And, maybe now we're talking about a website or a logo or digital marketing or email or, radio, TV, billboards, whatever the marketing strategies are. We've already done all of this groundwork to make sure that the strategies are on target. A lot of companies will jump right into a website without doing the foundational brand building homework. And we think that's the tail wagging the dog. And we don't really ever do that with our clients. We want to be sure that their resources are being spent on, that they're being spent effectively and efficiently. And oftentimes with nonprofits, those are donor dollars that people are entrusting to you. And we want to help our clients be good stewards of that and get the greatest return for that investment that they can. And then lastly, we build a timeline and a scorecard, and we talk about all the metrics that we're going to look at to make sure that our clients are getting a good return on their marketing investment. So that's the impact journey. We've done dozens and dozens of them. It's really the most important money that an organization can spend on their marketing, and guaranteed it will make every dollar they spend moving forward so much more effective.
Yeah, and that last point's a great one. And I will say to our listeners, it's a great process. I've been involved. I'm not a marketer, but I've been involved in or managed marketing as a part of my portfolio for years. But this is the crispest, simplest approach I've seen. Other firms have tried to walk me through things like this before, and they're helpful. But this one was really crisp. I got so much value, frankly, Justin, doing it for myself. And I didn't do all of the details of it, but just walking through kind of did I do this? How am I thinking about this? It was really helpful, that alone. But here's to me the punchline to what you just said. Most companies, not all, but most companies spend a lot of money on something called marketing. And it can be something, they spend a lot of money on a logo that they have no idea what it's actually saying to people. They spend a lot of money on a tagline that is like vanilla ice cream. I mean, and then all, brochures and all the stuff, billboard, radio. We spend a lot of money on marketing collateral, sales collateral, but haven't spent the time that you just laid out to do the thinking. It's like building a building with no foundation. If you do that, you build a building. It's just not going to last very long. So I love where you said, it's a great ROI view of your investment. You're putting money out. Make sure that you're getting what you need in return for that. So again, back to the book, it's that marketing plan, that impact journey, as you call it now, that is worth the price of admission. Buy the book just for that. But you'll really be blessed by the first part of it, where you're really talking through, here's how to think about this as a believer in business. Here's the different angles. All right, so we've talked a lot. I could go, there's so many more questions I want to ask you. You talk about the 5 fears that hinder integration of faith and business. You talk about how much money, what percent of our revenue should we spend in marketing, on and on. But I want you to kind of get the last word. What have we not talked about in this limited time that you really want to say, Mike? I need to say this. I really want the listeners to hear this, my readers to understand this from the book.
Yeah. You touched on it earlier, that idea of the sacred and the secular. I really want the purpose of the book. You asked me why I wrote the book. It's to challenge and equip and encourage faith-driven leaders to incorporate their faith into all parts of their life, including their home, their family, and their work. And to give some really solid examples of how this can be done in a way that's winsome and creative, and really draws people to you, to your family, to your brand, to your organization. And so, I want to encourage everyone to see their life as ministry. No matter what you do, your platform is unique. And God's given all of us different gifts and talents and abilities and people and position, and all of that is our platform. But for the believer, we have a common purpose. And I really want to encourage, the purpose of the book is to encourage organizations. There's this faith at work movement is really strong, and I love how much momentum is behind that. But very few people have taken that the next step to talk about your brand. And that's really the purpose of the book, is to think further and really think, how can I express this in my brand, for my organization, and really help people think of that idea of making an eternal impact through what they do.
Fantastic. So the book is Brand for Impact. Justin Eklund, who I'll have all this information in the show notes, contact, website, all those things that people can check out. Justin, thanks so much for being with us. I knew when we talked the first time, we both kind of felt that way. It's like, this is going to be a good conversation, and hopefully it'll be the first of many, and look forward to work out. I'm sure we'll bump into each other in the Faith and Works world. But guys, again, buy the book, read the book, go to the website, learn what's going on. Some of you may need to be thinking about engaging Justin and his company as guides for you in your impact journey. Others may choose to do it by just following the book, but don't miss the message that we just summed up for us, right? It's brand for impact, not just brand, right? It's impact. What impact do you want to have, and how could good branding for faith-driven business people, kingdom business people, how can you have more impact by being more thoughtful and deliberate about your branding? Brilliant. Justin, thanks so much. You get the last word, as was usual for our guests. So a word of wisdom, a word of encouragement, give us a line on the Super Bowl, whatever.
I just want to say thank you, Mike. It's been an honor to have this conversation. And, my prayer is that lots of people will be challenged and equipped, and that they'll really be willing to clarify their brand, and they'll be willing to make the greatest impact. And I just think God's got more for us to do. And I hope that we will all have the courage to engage and do the most with the opportunity that he's given us. So yeah, that's the goal. And this is his book. These are his words. And I'm just trying to be faithful to put it out there. And we'll see what he does, but he always does exceedingly more than we can imagine. So
every day. Thanks so much, brother. I've really enjoyed getting to know you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Well, that was our conversation with Justin Eklund, who is the author of Brand for Impact, a new book out, available through Amazon. It is a kingdom-oriented book on branding Christian or evangelically focused businesses. He covers, as we went through in our conversation, he covers the waterfront, from those who cannot be too overt with their faith because of where they live and operate, to those who can be very clear, very open about their faith, not obnoxious. You just that's a different thing altogether. Some of you who know me know one of my favorite words in the whole world is obstreperous, which means unnecessarily awkward or difficult. And there are a lot of Christians in business who are obstreperous. They are unnecessarily awkward or difficult. That's not at all what Justin talks about in his book, Brand for Impact. He's talking about how to brand effectively, how to market effectively in a way that impacts the world for Christ, not in a way that makes you out to be some super Christian. So I love our conversation. We talked about sort of the spectrum of coward on the one hand and courageous on the other, people who are afraid to even let anybody know they're a Christian, uh, and others who are, very courageous, very solid in their faith. He talked about, and I love this part, attracting the right customers through our brand. I hate to use the term bait, but that's the analogy that comes to my mind, that you're going to get the fish that you cast the bait for. And so if you want certain kind of fish, use a certain kind of bait. If you want certain kind of customers, you brand a certain way, not just any and everybody out there. The same thing's true, which to me is even more transformative. The same thing is true as we talked about the uh, the attraction of the right employees. They will come not just because you're Christian. I don't think anybody's interested in only hiring Christians, but who are the right people? Who are the kind of people that you need to have in your company? Top shelf talent, top shelf character. Who are the people God wants to bring into your company if you're a founder or an owner or a CEO? And you do that partially, at least, through branding. He also talked about this beautiful, very practical tool at the second half of the book. He's now renamed the Impact Journey. It was called Lean Marketing Plan, but it's the Impact Journey where you take some thought, deep thought, and definition, and move on into an execution plan to get your message to the marketplace. And again, I think the book is worth the price of admission just for that. But the thinking that he goes through, the stories he tells at the beginning of examples of people who are doing this is really helpful. That's kind of the first half of the book. So it was a great call with Justin Eklund. His book, again, is Brand for Impact. And not just brand, but Brand for Impact is available on Amazon.com. Or you can go to Justin Eklund, EKLUND.com, and you can learn more about him, but you'll also be directed to the page in Amazon to order it. That's how I got it. I read it quickly, getting ready for the podcast, but I really enjoyed it. So that was a great call. I appreciate you all being with us for it.